It is a joy to see all of our kids up here loving to perform, but also loving each other and loving being here in this building. But as you heard Tomas mention, joy is not what we're talking about today. It's a weird segue to merge with Vacation Bible School and Father's Day, but we're still in our Inside Out sermon series about our emotions and our feelings. And today, we're talking about sadness. So I recently saw an activity that was like one of those cookie cutter outlines of a human body. And the activity we're supposed to do is identify emotions and where they live in your body. And so sometimes maybe you could color joy as radiating out from your heart. I think anger sometimes bubbles up out of our gut. We feel it kind of down low. And fear, as we heard from Tomas last week, comes out of your amygdala, which is somewhere up here. I don't know where. But sadness is a hard one to figure out where to color in. Does it also come from the heart? Or does it just kind of seep out everywhere? Maybe it comes from your pores that are present throughout your body. For me, it's a weight that maybe presses on my shoulders, kind of pulls me down. I can feel it as like a welling in the corner of your eye, that tugging sensation that your tear ducts are getting ready to turn on. Sadness and its big sister, depression, often kind of seem to permeate through everything. And it's a confusing emotion because no one wants to feel sadness, but it does have a purpose, a reason for being in our world. In the movie Inside Out, which we rewatched as a family this past week, Joy, who's kind of the main character, the main emotion leading the ship inside Riley's brain, says she doesn't really know why sadness is even there. Because when we're up in Riley's brain and Joy's at the control board, Joy's doing all the things. She's having fun doing hockey, if we've watched it, having fun with her family, and everything is going really, really great. And then all of a sudden, bam, something happens and there's sadness just there. Sometimes in the movie, Joy will turn around and realize sadness has touched something. Memories are these balls that are the color of the memory. So most of Riley's memory balls are a beautiful yellow, happy, joyous color. And then all of a sudden, sadness will touch it and it turns blue. And Joy gets so annoyed. Sadness, what are you doing? Just quit touching it. Just leave it alone. I don't know how to fix it once you turn my joyous memory into a blue sadness memory. And so sadness will reply in kind of an Eeyore kind of voice and say, I'm so sorry. I thought I could fix it. I don't know why I mess everything up. And then she flops on the floor, usually face first, just all the way over. And that's how it feels sometimes. We don't know why sadness bubbles up within us. Our biblical scene today, almost everyone in the story is flopped on the floor in sadness. It's just a few short verses from John, but in them we hear that Mary is weeping, the community is weeping, and even at the end, Jesus is weeping. Everyone in the story is sad over the loss of Lazarus, a devoted brother, friend, and follower of Jesus. If we keep reading in the story, we would have reached where Jesus says, roll away the tomb, and Mary goes, no, he's been dead 4 days. He's going to smell so bad. Don't do it. But because it's Jesus, he says, nope, we're going to open it. And it opens, and Lazarus walks out. Jesus calls to him, and he gets up, and he walks out. In Jewish tradition and understanding, the soul often hovered over the body for 3 days. So that's why they tell us that it's 4. 4 days, that soul is gone. There is no hope. There is depression and sadness overwhelming the community. But in 4 days, Jesus says, Lazarus, get up and get out. Jesus knew the end of the story. Jesus knew that Lazarus was going to wake up, come back out, no matter what happened, and still Jesus weeps in this story. He is still moved by the sadness of those around him, but also the temporary loss of his good friend Lazarus. Nowhere does he say, "Stop crying. Get over it. You're fine. He's fine. Quit being sad. This is a stupid emotion to feel." He acknowledges and affirms that they are sad and that that's okay. And he is sad with them. The movie has this really great scene that I kind of alluded to before, where joy and sadness, as joy is trying to cheer up sadness, try to remember a happy memory together. And so Joy lifts up this day. She says, "Do you remember that day that our whole hockey team came and they lifted us up on their shoulders and they were cheering for us and it was amazing?" And Sadness goes, "Oh yeah, I remember that day. I liked it. That was the day we lost the game, that we missed the final goal." Joy can't stand it. She's about to lose her mind. Sadness, how is that a good day? How is that a happy memory? And as Joy is holding this memory, all of a sudden the yellow becomes blue. And she's mad again at Sadness. "Quit it, quit messing with my memories. Quit it." But what happens actually is the ball doesn't become all the way blue. It becomes yellow and blue together. Because the happiness of Riley's memory doesn't exist without the sadness of Joy's, of the first memory. If the team doesn't lose, if she doesn't mess up, then she's not sad. And then the team can't come and celebrate her and lift her up. By being sad, she demonstrated that she needed help, that she needed someone to be there for her. Jesus already knows this lesson, that sadness and joy exist together, that there is a complexity present in our lives. And so he doesn't just stand outside of the community's grief. He doesn't say, "I'll just wait till you guys are done being sad. I don't really like feeling that emotion." No, he jumps right in there in the mess with them. He says, "I'm going to be present in this moment." That's what we want, isn't it, when we're sad? Not someone to come fix it, but someone to be present with us in the sad. So Jesus is present with us, with them. The character Sadness, at one point, again, while laying face down on the floor, says this. She says, "Crying helps me slow down and obsess over the weight of life's problems." We don't often think about that as a good thing, as obsessing over life's problems, but it allows her to slow down. She doesn't keep spiraling about what's horrible. She slows down and takes a breath and thinks about it. People who are with us in that can help. I read this study this week out of Texas A&M that notes that sadness occurs when we perceive that we've lost a goal or something that we've desired, and that there's nothing we can do about it. And that it says once we hit that sadness, it's kind of like a deactivation state of doing little. There's not much behavior or physical activity. It's kind of just a pause in our lives. But it allows our brains to start thinking in a different way. And that benefit allows us to recover from the failure or from whatever happened and come into a new idea. Instead of just charging forward and continuing to spiral down, sadness can sometimes stay, "Wait, let's try something different." Stops the spiral. I do think it's important that we remember that there is a difference between sadness and depression. That I'm not talking about depression today because sadness is a temporary state. It's normal. We all feel it at some point or another. But depression is something bigger. It's more long-term, sometimes without an identifiable cause, and oftentimes need medicine or therapy or outside help to fix it. Depression is different than sadness because sadness can have a function. As we saw with Riley, it allows people to see that she needs help, that something needs to be different in her life. It's part of us, part of what makes us God's children. One of the things that surprised me in studying for this week, when you Google Christian response to sadness or scriptures with sadness or anything like that, there is a whole bunch of things that work really hard to tell you that God is never sad. That is not an emotion that God has, because the idea is that God is less than if God is sad. If God has such a negative emotion, there's something wrong. So there's a lot of talk about how that can't be okay, but I'm going to just be blunt and tell you I don't agree with that. I personally love that we have a God that gets metaphorically messy with us. That we have a God that chooses to be with us in the good times and the bad times. We have a God that sent his son to us and said, go live a fully human life, even as you are fully God, but feel all the things that the people feel. In Genesis 6:6, right before we get to Noah and the flood, we hear that God is grieved at what has happened to humanity. The prophet Jeremiah recalls God telling Jeremiah that the people have made God really sad, that God is crying endless tears for the pain of God's people. We hear in the Psalms a lot of times that God is grieved for us, sad for us, working for us. We hear today that Jesus weeps. That shortest verse that a lot of us probably memorized in Sunday school, he wept. Jesus is in the mess with us, feeling the same things that we feel, the grief of his dear friend. Jesus knows the end of the story, and still he weeps. Jesus knows that death never wins, and still he weeps. Sadness is a part of us. It shapes us and molds us and brings us forward in the visions that God has for us. It keeps us from having that stiff upper lip, from just holding our chin up and plowing through life. Sadness reminds us to pause, to feel our feelings and try different next time, to ask for help when we need it. Sadness has a purpose. And I know we don't like it. We would all probably much rather never feel sad in our lives. It would be great if we were in a world where that doesn't exist, but it does. It's here. A couple of weeks ago, we learned that anger can serve a purpose because it can spur us to action when we use it properly. Sadness has a similar purpose. It can reorient us in the world. Remind us to seek help or simply to pause until a new path can be discovered. We are created in the image of God, and that includes our highs, but also our lows. Let us pray. Almighty God, it makes us uncomfortable, but we are so thankful for the ways that you sit with us, that you come be present with us in our sadness. Help us to remember that we should not just spiral down and down and down, but pause and look for your light in the world, for the ways that you would have us go forward. We give all thanks and praise to you.